Food shouldn't be news. We've been on this planet for 190,000 years in this current form. We should be very confident about what we're supposed to eat. Lions figured it out. Wolves figured it out. Even cows have figured it out. But somehow, we, the smartest animals on the planet, haven't figured it out. Why haven't we figured out, Wellness Warrior? The truth is, we had it figured out, and then somehow we lost the information. And I want to talk about what happened. How did we lose it? In 1822, they introduced refined sugar. In 1866, we got cottonseed oil. Then in 1880, we got refined flour, followed quickly by Crisco in 1911. And all of a sudden, we had the ingredients for what today we call ultra-processed food. Very cheap, nutrient-deficient, but profitable ways to feed a large amount of people. Is that about health? No. That's about profits. Now, in what was either a genius move or just the biggest lucky story in the history of humanity, companies fell into the best way to keep us buying poison, right? These ultra-processed foods that are absolutely ruining our health. And most of us are doing it without even realizing that there's a psychological underpinning to what's happening to us. See, if you came to my house and my grandmother made her famous homemade bread, and you took a slice of that bread and you're like, that is the best bread I have ever had in my life. The truth is, the only way that you could ever get more of that bread would be to come back to me because she's my grandma and this is not sold in stores. Even if grandma was a super nice person and gave you the recipe, most of the time when we get recipes from these amazing dishes that family members make, when we try to make it, it doesn't come out right. This is why at my family events, we're always excited when grandma was making her famous pone, or when my mom is making her famous bread, or all the different things that these older generation people make, because they just do it in a way that it just doesn't come out the same when we try to do it. I'm curious to know, Wellness Warrior, did your grandmother have some kind of specialty dish that you remember? And by the way, just pointing this out, whenever I ask this question to people, a lot of the time, the specialty dish that grandma was making was not a dessert. I'm curious to know what your specialty dish was. So here's how they get us. Ultra-processed foods cannot be recreated at home. We don't have the machinery and we don't have the chemicals to make those protein bars or protein powders that the big companies have. So the only way that we can actually get these cereals and specialty items, the cookies with the cream in the middle, the only way we can actually get them is if we buy them from the company. And I'm going to take this a step further, because even when other companies try to recreate those cookies with the special cream in the middle, they never taste the same, Wellness Warrior. You know when you're eating an off-brand copy of the cookie that you were looking for. If we want the food, garbage, then we need to buy it from the company who makes it, that's specialized in it. And they are making ridiculous amounts of profit off of the fact that we want the one that tastes the way that they make it. And while they're making those profits, what's happening to our health? It's deteriorating. And most of the time when I have this conversation with people, the first thing, well, why would they want that? That can't be true. That cannot be their goal. No, I don't think their goal is necessarily that my health is going to decline, but that's not the problem. They don't care if my health declines. Their goal is for me to buy more of their product because they're seeing their product as a consumable, not as food. And they want us to use as much of that consumable as humanly possible. And if that means that I buy a package of those delicious cookies and instead of having one or two, I have a row As far as they're concerned, that's a win because, well, now I've just taken it down from, 50 or 60 servings to 3. This is the perfect scam, Wellness Warrior. Because if I'm selling you something and I'm calling it food, and especially when the something looks healthy, so let's throw cookies away for a second, breakfast cereal, or lunches, like those lunches that go in the microwave, or even those lunches that you could pop in the oven, or suppers, it doesn't matter. When it's a highly processed something that's for a meal, there's all kinds of writing all over it that says this is healthy, has vitamins and minerals and nutrients and all the amazing things that you need. It's healthy. But in fact, it's a craving factory. You eat it and you're hooked. And now that company makes several versions of this craving factory because maybe there's 16 different pizza versions or how many different boxed lunches that you can just throw in the microwave and put on your plate, and it's a craving factory. These food-like substances confuse us and get us to believe that our health is deteriorating, but it's nothing to do with what I'm eating. Something else is going wrong because of the great marketing they have on making sure that these health benefits that don't exist are all over the packaging. The more you eat, the more your health declines. And then they blame us, by the way, for overeating, right? Even the junk food. If you eat a whole row of cookies, how do you not expect to not gain weight? It says right there on the package that you should only have 3, and you had a row. What do you expect? Why did I have a row? Oh, right, because once I started eating them, I couldn't stop eating them. Why was that? Because we designed them that way. Not me, you. You designed them that way so that once I started eating them, I couldn't stop eating them. But then it's my fault. And by the way, it's also my fault because if I was working out, I would somehow be able to not gain weight and still, so I eat the row and then Wellness Warrior, that's not true. 80% of weight loss actually happens when you eat the proper food. Exercise, sleep, cold plunges, like everything else is 20%. Getting enough sun, all of that, 20%. The marketing only possibly works if we believe it, right? I need to believe that ultra-processed foods are just as healthy as whole, real foods. That's the only way that this will work. And here's the problem. I'm guilty of this. We did believe it. I believed it. How do I know that I believed it? I lived it. I was eating the wrong thing and believing that somehow I was going to be at the right weight. But even more importantly, and why I can say that the entire planet believes it, is because we feed ultra-processed foods to our babies and to our children. Baby formula, ultra-processed. Baby cereal, ultra-processed. And then as they get a little older and they're into the normal cereals, ultra-processed and full of colorants. How did we get to this situation? Well, we got here because there was a massive campaign back in the day when moms came into the workforce. And we were spending all of our time working during the day and home cooking at night, and we didn't have a free moment. And they started to give us these solutions, right? It's fast, it's easy, you're not going to be in the kitchen, and it's just as healthy as the homemade meals that you were making. And we believed it because it worked. Because here we are today, still feeding our children garbage. And then eventually the focus turned away from the parents and started focusing on the kids, because the more we can get these youngins into eating this way, the earlier that they're hooked, the more of this stuff that we're going to be able to sell. Because if mom goes grocery shopping and she's wanting to buy the healthy stuff, but the kid's having a tantrum in the aisle, there's more chance that mom's going to buy the unhealthy, and it's working. They bombarded our children during Saturday morning cartoons. In 1987, the average kid that watched that 8 to noon Saturday morning cartoon time slot received 160 ads for garbage. junky cereals and candies and stupidity. That's 40 commercials per hour of ultra processed food, Wellness Warrior. Do you know that it takes your kids only 5 interventions for them to be convinced of something if they're like under 5? And they were getting 40 per hour. And by 1994, it actually went up to 564 commercials in that 4-hour time slot, which is 141 ads per hour. I can't even imagine how short the segments of cartoons were for them to fit in that many commercials. Our children are being programmed to see garbage as normal food, to eat garbage all the time. So how could the powers that be possibly allow us to believe that keto and carnivore could be healthy? That would interfere with the marketing that's been going on and working for years, right? Like, they put this in place for a reason. It's so commonplace now to hear parents say, oh, my kids don't like meat. And it blows my mind when I hear that, because meat is how we got to be where we are on this planet. Meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and the accompanying fat is what allowed our brains to develop and helped us to take over everything. But even more important than that, it's also what our body needs to be able to build and repair itself every single day. The fact that children don't like it, and so parents are allowing them not to eat it, that means that these kids are not building healthy bodies. And we see the results, Wellness Warrior. We see children who are not meeting their height requirements. We see children who are overweight. We see children who are struggling to focus in school. And then we turn around and we see headlines that scream that red meat causes health problems. And the only reason for that, in my opinion, is to scare us away from healing our bodies and helping our children to properly advance, right? Helping all of us to end our cravings. We see headlines that say that keto is a deprivation diet, right? And it's too restrictive of carbohydrates. We'll be missing an essential nutrient. Carbohydrates are not essential nutrients. An essential nutrient is something that your body needs you to eat because it cannot make it itself. Your body makes all the carbohydrates that you ever need, so it is not an essential nutrient. But this is what we're told. Why are they telling us that? This is something in the biology books in Canada in high school, and for sure we know it in CEGEP and university. But yet somehow they're calling carbohydrates an essential nutrient. It's not reality, Wellness Warrior. But this they're doing to reinforce your carb cravings, right? They need you to need sugar. One of the amazing things that I see is that anytime anyone figures out that ultra processed foods are actually causing their problem, they want to talk about it. They want to scream it off the rooftops and tell it to the world that they figured out why they couldn't lose weight, that they figured out why whatever health problem was happening for them. Why did they want to do that? They're hoping that by sharing the information, it's going to help somebody else to not go through what they went through. That's why I make these videos. And when you look around, that's why a lot of the keto and carnivore community people make their videos. We want to break the illusion that ultra processed foods are just as healthy as whole, real foods, meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and low sugar vegetables. We want to break this illusion. It's not reality. Honestly, I feel like this is one of those situations where it's like, you know, when one of your kids figures out that there's no such thing as Santa Claus, and then because they don't believe, the kids that are younger than them stop believing. And even if mom and dad still do all the things and try to hide, the kids, once one kid knows, the illusion is broken. But if they're able to convince that older kid that they misunderstood the situation, if they can make that older kid doubt themselves in some way, everything goes back to normal. And they put those cookies out, and then they come back the next morning and there's a bite missing, and the reindeer is taking a chunk of that carrot, and they're back in the story. What's going to happen to us, Wellness Warrior? We're at that stage where mom and dad are trying to keep us believing that ultra-processed foods, they're okay. Are we listening to the sibling that heard mom saying, to dad that, we need to get that bliss point just right. We need to make sure this is hyper-palatable, right? Are we listening to the fact that the kid had someone at school tell them, hey, the carbohydrate thing's not true? Or are we going to let them pull the wool back over our eyes? They're desperately trying to keep us believing. That's why we never see any positive research about keto or carnivore. They are desperately trying to keep us believing that carbohydrates are just as healthy as meat, as fish, as poultry. They want us naive and they want us dependent. And to do that, we need to believe that red meat is just harmful, right? Saturated fat is bad. It's actually cheaper for these companies to fund research that supports the lies. That's why all the research is so negative about the healthy things, because they fund research. And it's cheaper for them to do that because then the news outlets will come and grab that information and put it out. Hey, another research is saying that you shouldn't be eating that red meat. Another researcher is saying, oh, those carnivores, they're going to be in trouble. Oh, here's some more research. Keto doesn't allow you to get enough of those essential carbohydrates. And it spreads for free. Wellness Warrior. And we believe it because we believe the news, right? That's what we've been taught. We have stopped thinking for ourselves. This is a serious matrix moment. Can I just tell you? Are you going to take the red pill and heal your body? And although most people say yes to that, right? I want you to check with yourself. Don't just say yes. I want you to check with yourself. Because if you're actually saying yes, then what that would mean is that when you have the opportunity, because you're at a birthday party and there's cake there, that you don't eat the cake. Because if I believe that that is harming my body, why would I eat it? This is really about understanding that if I tell myself the lie that, if it's just one time, I can manage it, I'm opening the door to the possibility that I get pulled back into the story that garbage isn't as bad as it really is. That blue pill has us believing that eating a toxin occasionally isn't a big deal. They did that to us the first time with the whole, as long as you're not drinking more than 3 drinks per day, you don't have... Yes, if I'm drinking every day, there's an issue there. Oh, as long as you're not smoking excessively. If I'm smoking, there's an issue there. If I allow toxins into my body, poisons into my body, they are damaging my body. This is the vehicle that I have to take me through my life. And if I'm harming it, it won't be able to take me as far as I want it to take me. Managing is not the same thing as thriving, Wellness Warrior. Managing gets me closer to a scenario where I fall off and I'm not doing the healthy things anymore. Because for so many of us, when we allow a little bit in, we end up chasing again. And then when we're chasing, it's hard to stop. Their goal is to keep us consuming the food-like substance. What's your goal, Wellness Warrior? I want you to put it in the comments below. If your goal is to eat for health, this video is about how eating more eggs helped me to get healthy and lose weight. Click on the link. I'll meet you over there. Might as well click the subscribe link too. You don't want to miss my next video.